Have you ever wondered how AI is transforming the art of storytelling and marketing? If that is the case, today's episode will be very interesting for you, which is where from Extra AI Podcast we are thrilled to invite a guest, Owen Garrity, the founder of FPW Media, Fast-Paced World Media, as a special guest. Owen brings with him a wealth of expertise and insights into how AI-driven technologies are revolutionizing the way we tell stories and engage with audiences. From crafting compelling narratives to creating impactful marketing campaigns, AI is reshaping traditional approaches and opening up new possibilities. Let's talk a few words about Owen. I would like to give a brief background about Owen. So, Owen Garrity established FPW Media in 2013 to revolutionize traditional marketing by prioritizing the client's needs. FPW's three divisions, brand, films, and merchandise, operate in house, ensuring clear communication and innovative solutions. Garrity's photography expertise, cultivated since his childhood, fuels his passion for visual storytelling, branding, and design. He oversees projects personally, fostering lasting partnerships across different industries. In 2018, his direction of the acclaimed film Lionhearted shed light on veterans' post war experiences. Garrity's commitment to compelling narratives extends to community involvement, including collaborations with local organizations, a lot of these local organizations. Outside work, he enjoys boxing, coffee, and gardening. Through FPW, Garrity continues to redefine marketing, emphasizing authentic client engagement and impactful storytelling. So join us as we dive into this exciting session about talking about how we explore AI can enhance creativity, streamline processes, and deliver personalized content that resonates deeply with your audience. Tune in to learn from Owen's expertise and discover how you can leverage AI to elevate your storytelling and marketing strategies to new heights. Don't miss this enlightening conversation that promises to inspire and inform the different ways of how you can use storytelling and marketing in the context of AI. As always, you'll find more information at the end of the podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this podcast conversation with Mr. Owen. All right, welcome back to our podcast series Extra AI. And today I have with me Owen Garrity, and we are going to talk about storytelling and AI. Welcome on board, Owen.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get started. Maybe, Owen, I will, just like how I get started with my podcast conversations, I would first want to kind of ask you about this, your personal or a professional story about how you got hooked up with AI, maybe a bit of a background, a personal or a professional story.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a very non-traditional background. I started doing professional photography when I was 15. And so everything I've done from a career standpoint from a really young age has been centered around storytelling, whether it be visual or otherwise. And so I started a marketing company around 12 years ago, and our whole focus has been telling our clients stories that resonate and connect with people in this really bifurcated media landscape. And what we found is that the story is the thing that can transcend an omni-channel presence, right? It's the thing, it's the glue, it's what brings everything together. And in the last, maybe 5 years, as AI has started to come along and advance at this ever increasing speed, we felt like and I felt like it's something that we need to understand and that we need to master from a storytelling perspective,
Right.
because
Right.
it's the future, right? In some
Right.
ways not, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But it's something that you can't ignore.
True, true. I completely echo your thoughts, Owen, because a lot has changed in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say. And in the last 2 years with the generative AI, things have become even more crazier or even more faster.
Yeah,
I and I know you coming from the storytelling background and marketing background. I think it's going to be very interesting because this is where AI and generative AI can make or break careers, I would say, because this is where people are really scared about how AI and generative AI is gonna play in their lives. Generally, when some new technology comes up, I think always there is this scare about this new technology. Before we take a break and get into the real conversation, maybe any thoughts about these upcoming AI advancements? Uh, what are your thoughts about that, and how do you see this affecting people of different people from different backgrounds?
yeah. I think it's very possible that we're on the precipice of another industrial revolution, right? Or a revolution like the transition between horse and car, for instance.
Right.
It is a tool like anything else, but it is a very transcendent tool. It's going to reshape most of the industries in existence, I would say, to some degree, or it's going to be highly integrated. Um, and to some degree, I think the fear is warranted, although it's also overblown, because at the end of the day, it's still just a tool, still
Mm,
just a thing that is only as good as the information that you feed it. Right? Generative AI has to be trained. And
true.
so if you're giving it bad information, it's going to spit out bad results. Well, that's pretty basic. That's been around for a really long time when we talk about computers. It's just how it does what it does and the speed at what it that it does what it does at. And to your point about how things are moving faster and faster, I think we are going to see that. We're going to see these quantum leaps forward, and we're already seeing that, right? I mean, the you know the latest version of Chat GPT is a quantum leap forward, where you're
Mhm.
multimodal. You can have all these different types of inputs from an information perspective, and you can have conversation. And that's only going to get better.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I completely agree with your thoughts. Maybe let's take a quick break, come back, and get into the real meat of our conversation for today.
Sounds great.
All right, welcome back. So this aspect of storytelling is very, very important, right? I think this is how people get glued to in any conversation, and how AI can make a impact on this. This is going to be even more interesting. So this is where I would like to first get started, if I may, Owen. My first question is how AI is affecting the different marketing agencies, since you have a bit of a background on that and you're
Absolutely.
working on that.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. I think it's affecting anybody who produces any sort of marketing or artistic pursuit, right? We always talk
Hmm.
about how
Hmm.
marketing and art is so intertwined, and because generative AI is so good at regurgitating information. They say that some of the best art is art that's copied, right? And so it's reshaping everything. It's making everybody question the way that they go about things, and how we see us and the other agencies that I think are integrating this tool successfully is that we're embracing it. We're
Hmm.
exploring every single new program that becomes available. We are not resistant to it. Quite the opposite. We're welcoming it with open arms, and so um, we're working with clients to train models to be their voice, for instance, right? So that when they ask AI to do something, it's in their brand compliant way, it's in their voice, it's with their product information, and so it's highly tailored. Do I think that right now it is a one for one replacement for a really skilled human? No, not on most
Mm,
things, not and definitely not on things that truly require creativity. Do I think it can be an aid? Absolutely, and
mm,
that's where we see using it a lot right now. Is that um, it can process huge data sets that otherwise would take somebody or somebody's a very long period of time to glean that important information, and you can do that in a fraction of the time. You can create ideas and iterate and edit in a way that otherwise traditional tools didn't allow. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But I think that this idea that it's going to replace the creative realm as a whole is short-sighted, because again it's just referencing the things that you put in, and so you lose the ability of the truly outside of the box idea, or you lose the ability of, yes, we've tried these five things and they haven't worked for us because of all these nuanced reasons. It's very hard to train just on data some of that nuance. And the last point I would make is that storytelling and good brand marketing is about getting an emotional response. At the end
mm,
of the day, you're asking your audience to do something, whether that be buy a product, visit a physical location, or some other action. And at the end of the day, humans are the only people who understand humans.
right.
And this idea that all of a sudden we're going to be able to predict or completely control human behavior, we've been working on that for a really long time. Google has been working on that from a really long time, and while they've gotten part of the way there, we're still not even close.
Right, right. So this gets me to this question, Owen. So you rightfully mentioned, I think, yes, humans have come a long way, and then of course Google has invested a lot, and there are a lot of these firms out there. But it's always that humans only can understand humans. So which means it takes to the next question about the impact of AI on these different strategies, right? The different marketing strategies. So what do you think about that, and how do you think organizations have to adapt? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting. Let's talk about maybe search for instance,
Hmm.
because I think that's a great sort of microcosm of this push and pull that's happening. All A lot of these companies have huge investments in AI products, right? So Microsoft obviously being very invested in ChatGPT, Google having their, or Alphabet, I should say, having their own AI product in Gemini, and the list goes on. Yet they also derive a lot of their revenue from search. And so they have this paradox where they need to have search results be as accurate and as informative as possible,
Hmm.
but yet they also need to sell their AI services. And to a certain degree, those things are contradictory, because if the search engines allow AI generated content to rule the web, you
Hmm.
potentially get into this idea of an infinity loop where the content that's being created is just being recycled and recycled and recycled by machines. It's
Right.
machines writing for machines that are then writing for other machines, and you lose the authority of what you're saying, because it's not actually people who do a thing or a task or a art or whatever it is that are expressing their opinion and their view on a subject. It's not an engineer who's actually designed a product making why that product is important. It's just regurgitated information. So it's incredibly interesting, that sort of push and pull, and I don't think that story is even close to its end. We're going to
Right.
see where that all lands. Um, but in the short term, what brands can do is make sure that the content that they're producing is as authoritative as possible. That it's not the spammy that everybody's seen recently, where you go to the site, it's clearly AI written with no human intervention, right? It's
Mm.
not that you can't use AI written content, but you need to make sure it has a human touch. And I think
Right.
that's where we work with our clients is it still needs to be an authoritative person who is directing whatever AI program you're using to create anything. And it still
Mm.
needs to be verified, and it still needs to be checked. And again, thinking about it as a tool, going back to this is not a human replacement at this time. This is another tool in your toolbox. It's a very powerful tool, but you
Right.
still need to use it.
Right. So this is where I believe I would like to take one step back and get zoom out a bit and go into the bigger picture of the marketing agencies and the media ecosystem as such. I know you guys have been working with a lot of customers out there. What are the typical challenges that you see when you are interacting with the customers, whether in the context of marketing and this media ecosystem? And how do you think uh, these are evolving now? Like, how do you maybe you want to talk a few words about that?
Yeah, great question. What I've seen over the last 5 years is this ever ever increasing understanding and reliance on the data, the first party data that
Mm,
these customers have, these clients have, right? Um, Before 5 years ago, people had data strategies, but they were maybe just confined to e-commerce, or they were confined to their customer retention or their accounting or their financials or whatever. And now I think people are starting to realize the only way we're going to succeed with AI is to have data that covers every part of our business and that is clean and referenceable, and of high quality. And so there's this rush, I think, to try to catch up and to try to understand what that means. Um, but the unfortunate thing, or the hard thing for most of the clients we work with, is things are changing so incredibly quickly. How do you move a large organization? How do you steer a cruise ship
mm,
when things are changing by the day? I
right.
mean, this is a space that the one what's true yesterday is not necessarily true today. The Google document leak just happened, as far as their search API, and I think that's a prime example of so
Right.
many of the things that we all as marketers thought were true about the algorithms that they use aren't. And so I think what we see is a lot of clients are struggling to just wrap their arms around this. They know they need to try to understand it. And so we see them trying to force AI into places that it just doesn't provide value yet. And so our message to our clients is, you know, take a long view, take a measured approach, know that you haven't missed the boat. There's
Mhm.
no boat to have missed yet. You're going to get there, but if you get there in a measured way, like you would with any other tool or any other new business opportunity, you're going to be more successful.
Right. Right. So in this context, it comes to the point that when you are working with your customers or with your clients, you focus on building their brand, right? And then you have to ensure that these different brand stories that you have will resonate with the consumers. But how do you do that in this age of AI? Uh, there are a lot of things changing. So uh, when you tell this story in this aspect of storytelling and uh, like how do you build the brands and how that will resonate with the customers?
Yeah. Um, Man, that's a great question. If I fully had the perfect plan, I think I'd be on an island. But I'll give you my opinion currently, and that is authenticity. With everything, with the prevalence of AI, there is this backlash from customers that we see, from the end user, right? Whatever our clients are, their customers. Um, there's this backlash against things that feel inauthentic, or things
Mhm.
that feel fake, or things that not necessarily feel AI generated, but don't resonate, aren't human, don't tell a cohesive story. And I think that's only going to accelerate,
Right.
because people want, especially coming out of the pandemic and coming out of this incredibly challenging time, this time of isolation, the last thing they want is to interact with brands that um, feel sterile or feel inauthentic and don't speak to who they are. And so where I think you can leverage AI is taking your overall core message, your overall authenticity, and helping to narrow that into little tiny pieces that really resonate with all of the different personas that a brand has, where otherwise you may not be able to create that bifurcated of a message to reach every single person. But you have to, and it's so incredibly key that you focus on the authenticity of the message, the why. Why is the customer coming to you? Why did you provide this product in the first place? And so we're doing a lot of interesting work where we're like kind of going back to the beginning of the origin story of these companies, of these brands, and talking to them about, hey, we want to hear how you started. We want to hear the why behind this product. And we need to put that front and center again, because we've gotten to this point where everybody's trying to market in this really transactional way. And it's, oh, speed, 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 speed. It's like, yeah, to a point. But if you were lacking that authenticity, the brands that have it are going to beat you 9 times out of 10.
Right. Right. So that's a great way of putting it across, Owen. So going back to the root cause of understanding why you even built this feature or why you even built this brand, and telling that in such a way that the story is compelling, and using all that aspects and fine tuning and taking all the data, and then maybe putting in these deep learning models and building the insights out of it, that will definitely tell the story. Uh, we don't need to go into the specifics of the names of the customers or any, but for the confidentiality purposes, do you like to take an example and explain this process of how uh, your company builds this and enhances the storytelling of a particular brand and make them look better? Uh, Maybe you can also throw in some of these AI aspects that you are building into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was literally on a call right before this interview, doing just that. And it's a relatively new client. They're in the tactical and firearms industry, so it's a somewhat regulated market, which we like, because it's interesting. It provides its own unique challenges, but it's a brand with a history of 70 years almost, and but they're just now really trying to get aggressive from a marketing standpoint. And so couple different things. We're creating buyer personas, right? Which is not a new concept by any means. So we're creating, say 10 buyer personas. What do each of those groups care about? What resonates with them? Then we're looking at all of the data of their competitors across all their social media channels, to see how those competitors are marketing to those buyer personas specifically, right? So we're taking these huge data sets, crunching it all together. And so what some of the things we've already identified in just that little part of the process is what type of tone and language is driving the most engagement with each buyer persona, right? So we're already at a really kind of nice place there. Then today, what we were doing is creating that story map, right? What we call a story map, where we're interviewing the key members of the company to understand their whole journey, the why, where they're trying to go, and then we take that story and individualize it for each of the buyer personas. Then we can train a model for each of the buyer personas based on that information to help us with our volume of content that we need, right? The volume of the social media content and all of that. And we're not going to, just use Dolly, for instance, and ChatGPT to create completely AI posts. That would be, I think, really inauthentic, but it allows us to check strategy, right? So we're using the AI more as a strategic and research tool rather than a content generation. We're making sure that the ideas that our team have match the data set, match the tone, match the things that we know the data is telling us will be successful. And then we just build on that.
So when you do this, obviously the customer or your client will have to, the outcome would be that there will be some kind of a return on investment. So how do they kind of track their ROI on these multi-touch marketing campaigns, right? Like, because now you have built these different personas, you have um, mapped the data with the insights, yeah, and you're doing AI not just for the sake of generative AI, but you're also trying to do uh, what data sets that you have, what are the different personas, and then you're mapping these personas, taking the data sets, taking these insights, and then generating maybe explaining that, okay, this is how you will have to position your product, or this is how you have to tell the story of these different brands. Yes, that is all good, but for the client or for the end user, for the customer, how are you tracking their return on investment? What are their uh, like emotions there?
Yeah. So every client we work with upfront, then I guess I kind of skipped this, but is
Mhm.
we're going to identify what are we trying to achieve, right?
Mhm.
What is our why? We ask a lot of why questions, and why are we FPW, our agency? Why are we involved with you, the client? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to retain customers? Are you trying to get new customers? Are you trying to launch a new product? Whatever it may be, and we individualize those whys to each persona group and each channel, and
Mhm.
then we're going to set a benchmark, right? Where are we at today? Okay.
Right.
If we're, if our engagement is 1% of our following today, what does success look like? Or is it a click through and purchase, right? Um, a lot of the marketing we do also is in the B2B world, where it becomes even harder to track direct ROI. So this client that I was speaking of definitely falls into partially that category. Some of the majority of their business comes through dealers where they're selling
Mhm.
at wholesale. So one of the ways we're going to gauge ROI with them is they have, let's say, 3,000 dealers in their CRM.
Mhm.
And we know the average dealer order. We know the average order volume across all of that. And so we've
Mhm.
set specific benchmarks and a time period by which we are going to achieve that from these tactics. So to us, especially now, um, there's a lot of ways to track that ROI. I think where it's always hard from a marketing perspective is it's no one action is going to get you that ROI.
Right.
You maybe have to take 10 different tactics and mix them together over a period of time to get somebody to purchase, or to get somebody to actually purchase more. And so that can be hard, but net you look at, are the sum of everything we're doing providing the result that we need? And if yes, then we're providing the ROI. If not, you just look then at every single individualized channel and say, okay, where are we not performing? What adjustment do we need to make there?
Mm. And that is where your secret sauce lies, right? I think FPW. That is how you help your customers or the clients build that. Maybe I think at this point, I would like to ask you your mission statement or vision statement about FPW at a high level, and maybe what are the different industries that you serve, and what are the different users that you serve, maybe at a very high level. If you can provide that overview, that will be helpful for the audience as well.
Yeah. So FPW stands for fast paced world. And the reason for that is, we want to create things that rise above the digital noise, so to speak. We started off that way of the current advertising market is so saturated. The
Mm.
average person sees an ungodly amount of ads per day. And so creating something that will stand out requires a lot of different moving pieces. So we've set ourselves up to be a little bit different. We're three highly connected creative studios. We have a merch division, which does trade show fulfillment.
Mhm.
We have our own embroidery machines, our own screen print. We have a films division, which has our own studio, our video, our photo, our AR, our VR. And then we have a brand division, which does everything that a traditional marketing agency does: brand strategy, AI integration, web design, graphic design, all of that. And all of that is in house. We
Mhm.
contract out very little. The majority of everything we do is done by our team, our full-time employees at our physical locations. And the reason for that is so that we can move faster, is that so that we can drive that level of consistency across every single touch point. Our client mix is very heavily influenced in heavy industrial manufacturing, sort of the bedrock industries of infrastructure.
Mhm.
And then we have a whole kind of separate area of focus, which is our softwares, our emerging energy, our sort of faster moving industries. And
Mhm.
then third area of focus would be more of our consumer goods. So our e-commerce, our direct to consumer or distributed products, and we feel like that portfolio and area of focus have a lot of overlap, even though it doesn't sound like it on the core. They have a huge amount of overlap, and so the strategies we develop for one can be easily taken and tweaked to the other. But by and large, these areas that we work with are often ignored by the big agencies in San Francisco or in New York.
Mhm.
And so it's something that there's a huge amount of demand. It's an area that we are really focused on. We understand. Our average client engagement is over 4 years, so we want to be a partner. It's not that we're just doing something here and there and then gone. It's we're going to really understand your brand and work with you over the long term. So we're a little bit of a smaller shop, I guess, by the scale of some of these bigger holding companies. We're about 50 full time at any given time. That's five
Mhm.
zero, and um, we call ourselves the unagency because we want to do things a little bit differently. We check our ego at the door. The client is always right. We're going to
Mhm.
listen to them because we ultimately know that they know their business better than anybody. And
Mhm.
so we're just here to amplify their voice. We're not here to force them how they're going to speak. We're just here to tell their story.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm pretty sure you work with your clients, irrespective of their hyperscaler platforms they use, right? I think whether it is the AWS or Google Cloud Platform or Azure, any particular, and of course your studios. I think you are also using some of these tools, right? I think any you want to talk a bit about that or uh,
Sure. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So we are, to your point, platform agnostic when it comes to clients. We have coverage over the majority of the major CRMs. We have expertise in that. Same with the majority of the common architectures from a web perspective, and then also same for e-commerce, right? For
Mhm.
shopping cart functionality, and we do that intentionally because we believe that, again, the toolbox, right? We want to find and use the best tool for our client. If they have a tool that they're already using that they like, we're going to
Mhm.
integrate with that, and we have the depth and the experience to be able to do that. We're very heavily utilizing most of the Google products.
Mhm.
That's something that we personally use a lot. um, and I would say that in addition to that, the premium versions of ChatGPT and its corresponding product on the AI side is something that we fully integrated. And then also, Adobe is it's very
Right.
central to what we do. The whole Adobe suite of products
Mhm.
um, is something that we couldn't live without as an agency. And so I would say that if you look at when we're talking about our creation stack, it's probably most dependent on Adobe and the corresponding products that they make.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think, and I want to kind of go a bit into that question about these different studios that you mentioned. And do you want to talk a bit about the AR/VR studio that you briefly mentioned? What are the things that you're focusing on there, and how do you see things proceeding there?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things we're testing right now is Apple Vision Pro.
Hmm.
Um, obviously when that came out, we were one of the first to get our hands on a few, and it's been really interesting to see. I was expecting the adoption of that to be a lot faster than it has been. I think the price point is a struggle, but
Yeah.
I very much foresee a world where there is an increasing amount of AR experiences
Hmm.
and true full VR. I think VR was just too early.
Right.
We were really heavily into it 6, 7 years ago. We had, the camera arrays before anybody in our area, and we shot a lot of experiences that were used at sporting events and trade shows and all these different things. But it was clunky. It didn't, as you remember, I think from that time, you'd put on the
Hmm.
goggles. Sometimes they'd work, sometimes they wouldn't,
Right.
and it was just too early. But we're now catching up, I think, for what people expect the experience to be. And so one of the things that we're really excited about right now is, aerial VR, right? Is so
Mm.
cool that at the resolutions that you can get now, especially with the larger heavy lift drones, you can suspend a pretty large camera array, and you can, get this bird's eye view that's, really quite incredible. I would
Right.
say another area too that we, have experimented with and do a lot is, a client may want a branding package on the inside of their office park or their dealership or whatever, where we can scan that
Hmm.
in 3-dimensional space, render everything, and then allow the client to experience the space as if the project is already done. And so tools like that are really transformative in our workflow.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think now when you add the AI and generative AI aspects on top of that, I think I'm pretty sure things will multiply much more and provide a better benefits for the end users. And this is where I think when you
Absolutely.
kind of tie up all these into the storytelling aspect and then create a better brand for the end user, I think this is where it all comes together. Uh, so I would like to
That's
now
why
pivot. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's why I'm excited to come to work every day. Just what you said. I agree.
Right, right. And this is where I would like to pivot our discussion a bit. We talked a lot about all these tools and how uh, we can use all these different tools and technologies and make it better for the day of the life for your clients or customers. But this all takes back to the key aspect of content, right? And and we always say that content is the key. In your words, I think why do you think uh, I know everybody has their own definition, but in your words, in the aspects of marketing and storytelling, why do you think content is the key? And how do you position that with your customers so that it reaches the right, so that the content, you reach the right audience for your content? Because it's that, yes, content is the key, but at the same time, it has to reach the right audience. How do you make sure that it happens?
Yeah. It's interesting because it is both. Like you just said, it is both things simultaneously working together.
Mm.
More so than ever, content is king because at the end of the day, as a marketer, I'm trying to get somebody to do something. Let's just cut through all the brass tacks. Most
Right.
most of the time, I'm trying to get them to buy something. I'm trying to get them to exchange money for a good or service. And I only have so many triggers to do that. I have all of my emotional triggers, right? I have fear, lust, jealousy, rage, all of these things that are part of the human experience that I can poke at, and influence, whether it be in the moment or over 6 months. Um, and so if I have a good message that I show you at an inopportune time or place, it still has a chance of resonating. If I have a bad message and I show it to you in an inopportune time or place, I will actually do harm to the brand,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so you got to have that good message, that cohesive story to start, or else there's no point in even marketing. And we talk to people about this. If you're not willing to invest the time and money it takes to create a story, to create compelling visuals, to create compelling video, to create compelling copy that actually serves a purpose in the eyes of your customer, you could spend an inordinate amount of money on marketing, but you're not going to see the results that you want. So that's number one. Number two is that planning and bifurcation of message and personalization, right? Really, it's interesting. We've gotten to this point where people expect that a brand is going to speak to them as an individual.
Mm.
Um, they want to connect one on one in some fashion with that brand, whether it be the values of the brand, whether it be the imagery of the brand, the aesthetic, the the whatever. Um, and so we look a lot, I think, to the luxury retail industry actually, because
Mm.
they've mastered this way before most of the other marketers. They were able to do this because they had the small volume and they've been able to scale it, right? LVMH is one of the most valuable companies in the world for a reason. And how do you sell things that cost the same as a much less expensive thing for this huge amount of money? Well, you tell a story. You create this heritage and this ideal or an idea of a thing. And so when we take that philosophy through everything that we do. And so it's having the message, but it's then showing the message to the person at the right time in the right place. So are they paying attention, right? If we're trying to target men 25 to 50, well, a football game is going to be one of our best opportunities to do that, because you better
Right.
believe they're on the couch and they're watching. And so it's all about finding and understanding the audience of our clients to know where and when are the people or the eyeballs that matter to them. And then an additional point on that is, when are those people in a receptive state? When are they going to actually pay attention to that
Mhm.
message that we are giving them?
Right. Right. I completely agree with that because this is where we see these $1 million ads during our $1 million or more than that during our Super Bowl commercials. And these are very prime time ads. And that is where you have to capture the moment at the right time, at the right location. Beautiful. I know we're having such an interesting conversation. Coming to the most important question of the podcast, this is how I term it as the $1 million or the $1 billion question. I know people have different responses, different ways of answering it. What is the unique factor or uniqueness or the differentiation factor uh, about your brand or about your uh, FPW to set you apart from the competition, or maybe add that unique element into the competition? Sometimes it might be that you have to be you have to set yourself apart from the competition, but sometimes it also might have to be part of the competition and elevate the whole thing together. Any maybe one word, one phrase, or maybe some kind of a thing that you would like to explain?
Yeah. So we have something up in our office space and our warehouses and our studio all around, and it's we make the impossible possible on a daily basis, and that is the ethos of who we are. I think that in our industry there are so many agencies that can do what we can do, or parts of what we can do, and there's an incredible amount of talent. But what I've always felt is that we have to offer the top tier service, the top tier solution, but do it in a way that nobody else is doing it. And for us, it's this idea of customer service first, a luxury hospitality version of customer service, right? If you've ever checked into a five-star resort, you get to your room and there's a phone in the room,
Mhm.
and you can call on that phone and get anything that your heart desires, right? Anything. Doesn't
Right,
matter. Whatever
right.
you need, whatever service you need, your clothes washed, sure. You need to go somewhere, sure. You want, a Twinkie at 4 in the morning,
Mhm.
absolutely, it'll be there. And that's the way that we've created our business, is this idea that our clients should have one single point of contact that they can call at any time and get what they need. And that they have utmost confidence in the fact that what we provide them is going to be the newest, the best, the freshest idea possible, and that it's going to be devoid of any sort of ego or anything that's focused on us, right? What
Mhm.
I always tell my team is, at the end of the day, we're here to make recommendations. What we think doesn't matter. We
Right.
are here to guide, but not tell.
Beautiful. I like the saying that making the impossible possible, and then we are there to guide but not tell. Beautiful quotes. I know we're coming to the end of the conversation. Any closing remarks or key takeaways for the audience, or if we want to do any shout out about your FPW, feel free to talk about it.
Awesome. What I would hope people are focused on as it pertains to AI and storytelling is that don't get so focused on the tool that you lose sight of the story. Always start with the story and make sure that you're validating that what you are saying provides some sort of value to who you're saying it to. Because otherwise, you can use every single tool and the best tool, but you won't get to the result you want. And so, if nothing else, I think that's the place to start and end, uh, and you'll do well.
Beautiful. Amazing piece of advice. It's a pleasure that I had this conversation with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
All right. So, as we wrap up this enlightening episode of Extra AI Podcast, we would first want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guest, Mr. Owen Garrity, for sharing his invaluable insights on how AI is revolutionizing storytelling and marketing. Owen, your expertise has truly inspired us to think differently about the future of content creation. And to our amazing audience, thank you all for tuning in and being part of this journey with us. We appreciate your continued support and enthusiasm. Stay glued to Extra AI Video Podcast because we have many more exciting and thought provoking conversations lined up for you in season 10. As always, I will be tagging Mr. Owen Garrity on our LinkedIn post. So if you have any further questions, you can directly reach out to Mr. Owen and he will be welcome to answer your questions. Alternatively, you can also reach out to me, Raghu Banda, and I can put you in touch with Mr. Owen. As you know, you can also reach out via my other social media channels like Twitter or X via my RK Banda handle or my RK Banda handle on Threads. We also have our website extraai.com, xtrawai.com, where you can go and find humongous amount of other interesting conversations and podcasts in the context of AI with a wide variety of guests. We've recently started uploading our content onto YouTube, our video podcast, so you can find that under the channel RK Banda. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead and do subscribe because there are many more interesting podcast conversations that are being planned. And we don't want you to miss out on this interesting episodes. Until next time, keep exploring the limitless possibilities of AI. Thank you all for tuning in to Extra AI Podcast. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuned in from. Thank you and bye bye now. This is your host, Raghu Banda, signing off.